Hello everyone, welcome back to MediPlacebo. In today's video, I'll be covering about the general concept of the muscles. So, starting with the general concept, we will be covering in two sections, which is the first part would be including the introduction, the general terms related to it, the types of myofilaments and the types of muscle cells in detail. And in the next section, we will be discussing the mechanism related to the excitation, contraction and relaxation of the particular muscle, that is the skeletal muscle, the smooth muscle and the cardiac muscle respectively. So starting with the first part, we have the general concept of muscles. So the very basic thing which we all know, that these muscle cells are made out of the soft tissue and are composed of the long muscle fibers. In turn, these long muscle fibers are made out of some myofilaments. So we'll be discussing the myofilaments, which are the actin, the myosin and the structures. And apart from it, we have some other myofilaments like titin. So here I want to mention that if there is any calcification occurring in the muscle tissue, it would lead to a condition known as myositis ossificans. So it is a condition which is more commonly found in athletes due to their extensive use of the muscles, and due to the high amount of wearing and tearing of the muscles, it would lead to the deposition of calcium and lead to the condition known as the myositis ossificans. Mostly it occurs in our thigh muscles. For example, we have the quadriceps on our anterior side and these hamstring muscles on the posterior side. So moving forward, we have the types of muscle cells which can be classified into the striated as well as the non-striated. The term striated means that the muscle has the presence of bands or they are striped in nature, as we can see in example of zebra, since the zebra is a common example, is a common animal which is striped. So we have the striated muscles which are the skeletal as well as the cardiac muscles, whereas we have the non-striated muscles which are the smooth muscles. So regarding each muscle, we have some terms which are pertaining to each of them, such as we have the sarcolemma. The terms which we use usually for the other cells are different from the one which we use for the muscles, since here in case of the cell membrane we say it as the sarcolemma or also known as the myolemma. The term sarcos refers to muscle and lemma means membrane. So the term sarcolemma refers as the muscle membrane. The term myo can be also used as an alternative to sarcos for muscle. Now within the sarcolemma we have some variations, which are the T-tubules in case of the skeletal muscles and the cardiac muscles, and the caveolae in case of the smooth muscles. So here I have one diagram which represents the T-tubules which are present in the cell membrane. These can be visualized as the presence of potholes in a road. Suppose that on a road we have the presence of some potholes. So it is somewhat analogous in case of the cell membrane having the presence of the T-tubules, and the reason why these T-tubules are present is because they are in close proximity to the sarcoplasmic reticulum, and they stimulate the sarcoplasmic reticulum to release the calcium ions into the cytosol to initiate the process of contraction. So we'll be studying regarding this process in the sliding filament theory in much more detail. So we have the sarcolemma. In it we have the presence of the T-tubules, and here we have the terminal cisternae. The terminal cisternae are the bulged part of the sarcoplasmic reticulum and are in close proximity to the T-tubules and are responsible for the formation of a triad in case of the skeletal muscle. The triad is formed by the two terminal cisternae along with one T-tubule, whereas a dyad is formed in case of the cardiac muscle, which is formed with the help of one terminal cisternae along with one T-tubule. And as I mentioned before, that the function of the T-tubule is nothing but to propagate the action potential which has been transferred from the neuron ending to the cell membrane. And here on the sarcolemma, that is the muscle membrane, we have some presence of the calcium receptors which are present on both the sarcolemma as well as the sarcoplasmic reticulum, which are known as the DHPR, that is the dihydropyridine receptors, and the RYR, that is the ryanodine receptors. So moving forward, I want to mention some basic differences which occur in case of the sarcoplasmic reticulum with respect to the endoplasmic reticulum. The endoplasmic reticulum are responsible for the protein development, that is, they are involved in the formation of proteins, whereas in case of the sarcoplasmic reticulum, these act as a reservoir of calcium ions and release those calcium ions or uptake those calcium ions according to the needs of the body. And similar to the T tubules, in case of the smooth muscles, we have the presence of the caveolae, and these caveolae have the similar function as that of the T tubules, that is, the transmission of the action potential for the contraction of the muscle. So moving forward, we have the next term, which is the sarcoplasm. The sarcoplasm refers to the cytoplasm of the muscle cell, and these are made out of the myofibrils, the mitochondria, the sarcoplasmic reticulum, the Golgi bodies, and some amount of glycogen droplets which are present in each muscle, and few lipid droplets which are present in few muscles. Regarding the glycogen droplets, we have some clinical significance which I'll be discussing very soon. So here I have drawn a vague diagram representing the transverse section of the muscle. In it we have the bundle of myofibers which are forming the myofibrils. So the basic functional unit of myofibril is the sarcomere, and the bundle of myofibrils are in turn enclosed by the sarcolemma. So here you can take a look that the bundle of myofibrils are enclosed with the help of the plasma membrane, which is the sarcolemma, and in the plasma membrane we have the transverse tubules, which are the invaginations within the plasma membrane. And here you can take a look that the triad which is being formed with the help of the transverse tubule and the terminal cisternae of the sarcoplasmic reticulum. And in case of the smooth muscles, we have the presence of the caveolae, which are the invaginations. So moving forward towards the next term, which is the tendon. The tendon is the part of the connective tissue which connects the muscle to the bone. So suppose we have the part of the bone here, to it we have the tendon attached, and further we have the presence of the muscles, and the tendon is the part of the muscle itself, but here to represent it I have drawn it with the different color. And the flat tendon is known as the aponeurosis, and we have the famous example of it as the bicipital aponeurosis. So moving a step backwards, as we have discussed earlier, the clinical significance which was related to glycogen was the excess of glycogen which occurs in case of the McArdle's disease, which is a type of glycogen storage disease due to the deficiency of the glycogen phosphorylase enzyme, which is responsible for the breakdown of the glucose. And the common symptoms related to it are the muscle stiffness and the back pain. So as we discussed earlier, that we have the striated muscle fibers, in which we have the skeletal muscle as well as the cardiac muscle. And in case of the skeletal muscle we have the triad, and in case of the cardiac muscle we have the formation of the dyad. The skeletal muscle has the presence of multiple nucleus at their periphery, whereas in case of the cardiac muscles we have one nucleus, that is, it is mononucleated and it is present centrally. Although the cardiac muscle structurally is mononucleated, it functionally acts as a syncytium. It can be said as having the presence of multiple nucleus within each cell. Moving ahead, we have the non-striated muscle fiber, in which we have the smooth muscle, the spindle shaped, which is spindle shaped and has the presence of the caveolae. So I'll be discussing about the three muscles after the types of myofilaments in much more detail. So moving forward, we have the two types of myofilaments, which are the thick and the thin myofilament. The thick myofilament is the myosin, whereas the thin myofilament is the actin, and both of it are responsible for the contractile properties of the muscles, that is, they help in the contraction movement. The actin myofilament is a type of thin filament which is made out of the actin molecules, some regulatory proteins and the nebulin protein. So these regulatory proteins are responsible for prevention of the permanent interaction between the actin and the myosin molecules. That is, here if we have the actin molecule and here we have the myosin head, so after completing the process of pulling the filament towards the H zone, these regulatory proteins will break the bond between the myosin head and the myosin site on the actin filament. So these regulatory proteins are comprised of the myosin binding sites, which are the tropomyosin in case of the skeletal muscle, as well as the cardiac muscle, since it is present for the striated muscle. So the tropomyosin molecule is present in the striated muscle, whereas in case of the smooth muscles or the non-striated muscles, we have the caldesmon and the calponin. The other regulatory protein which we have in our body is the calcium binding site present on the striated muscles as well as the non-striated muscles. So in case of the striated muscle, again we have skeletal muscle along with the cardiac muscle, and the smooth muscle, which are the non-striated muscle. So the troponin are present in case of the striated muscle, and the calcium binding site in case of the smooth muscle or the non-striated muscle is the calmodulin. So it is the calcium binding site in case of the smooth muscles. And lastly, we have the nebulin, which has the function to maintain the length of the actin myofilament. And lastly, I want to emphasize regarding the clinical significance related to the troponin. So if in our body we have excess of cardiac troponin found in our blood, then it indicates that we have the symptoms of the myocardial infarction, which is a type of heart disease. The next type of myofilament which we have in our body is the myosin myofilament. The myosin myofilament is a type of thick filament which is made out of the three parts, which is the head, the neck and the tail. So here you can take a look at the diagram, which comprises the head of the myosin. The neck of the myosin is made out of the light chain region, and here we have the tail region. So these three parts are referred as the domain or the domains of the myosin myofilament. Next, we have the presence of the heavy chains and the light chains. Next, we have the presence of the heavy chains in the region of tail, the light chains in the region of the neck, and we have the actin binding site, the ATP binding site and the ATPase domain. So this actin binding site is responsible for the formation of bond between the myosin head and the myosin part of the actin filament, and the ATP binding site is responsible for the interaction of the ATP molecules, which can be further hydrolyzed in the ATPase domain and can be converted into the ADP along with the inorganic phosphate. So the function of the myosin molecule is to pull the actin filaments with the help of the ATP hydrolysis, that is the breakdown of the ATP in the presence of water to form ADP along with the inorganic phosphate. And as we discussed previously, we have the two heavy chains and the two light chains. The two heavy chains present in the region of the tail and the two light chains present in the region of the neck. Now further, the two heavy chains can be further classified into the N-terminal and the C-terminal. Since we know that the heavy chains are made out of the amino acids and the basic structure of amino acid comprises of the N-terminal and the C-terminal. The N-terminal representing the amino group, whereas the C-terminal representing the carboxylic group. Also, the myosin molecules are similar to the structure of the caduceus, which is a representative of the medical symbol. Here, in case of the caduceus, we can understand it as the head of the snakes as the head of the myosin, then we have the neck region, and then we have the tail region. So the next time you encounter the structure of the caduceus, you may remember that it has the structure similar to the myosin myofilament. Now moving towards the types of the muscles, that is the skeletal muscle, the cardiac muscle and the smooth muscle. So here we have the basic structure of the skeletal muscle, in which we can take a look that we have the bone, and joining the muscle and the bone we have the tendon. So it is the region which is whitish in appearance and connects the muscle to the bone. The outer covering which we have to the skeletal muscle is the epimysium. Now here epi stands for outer and mysium refers to the muscle. So we can take a look that the epimysium is covering the bundle of fascicles, that is we have one fascicle, and the group of such fascicles is covered with the help of the epimysium, and each fascicle is in turn covered with the help of the endomysium, and the endomysium covers the muscle fibers, and these muscle fibers would form collectively the myofibril. Now, one more point regarding the muscle is that in the region of the perimysium we have the presence of the blood vessels which are responsible for providing nutrition to the muscles. So we have the epimysium forming the epi or the outer, the perimysium which is forming the surrounding to the fascicles, and the endomysium forming the inner to the muscle fiber. Now, as we discussed previously, that the structure of the skeletal muscle is striated and it has the presence of multiple nuclei at the periphery of the cells, and has the invaginations which are known as the tree tubules forming the triad, and we have the presence of the calcium stores in the sarcoplasmic reticulum. Now, the type 1 muscle fibers are dark red in appearance, whereas the type 2 muscle fiber are bright white in appearance. The reason for it is because of the presence of mitochondria in case of the type 1 muscle fiber, and so it has higher amount of oxygen, and so it has higher amount of glycolysis which is being taking place in the type 1 muscle fiber, and in case of the type 2 muscle fiber we have less mitochondria, and so here we have the anaerobic glycolysis taking place. And to be specific, in case of the aerobic glycolysis, it mostly occurs with the help of oxidative phosphorylation, and as we know that mitochondria plays a role in the electron transfer in case of the oxidative phosphorylation. Now, we can say that the type 1 muscle fibers are the slow twitch or have slow activity but have a long endurance, that is, it has a long term activity, whereas in case of the type 2 muscle fibers we have the fast twitch, that is the fast activity, but it lasts for a short term or it is a short endured muscle. And because of it we have the various examples which are the postural muscles which forms the type 1 muscle fibers, whereas the extraocular muscles which are involved in the control of the movement of your eyelid, the superior one, and the orbit. Whereas in case of the postural muscles we have the deep muscles of the back, the abdomen, and the pelvis. So here we can take a look at some postural muscles that are the soleus, the gastrocnemius, and the plantaris, which are the muscles of your leg, and here you have the 6 muscles which are extraocular muscles controlling the movement of the orbit as well as the superior eyelid. So these are the superior oblique muscle, the inferior rectus muscle, the inferior oblique muscle, the medial rectus muscle, the inferior rectus muscle, the lateral rectus muscle, and the superior rectus muscle. So these muscles are involved in the formation of the extraocular muscles which are involved in the controlling of the movement of the eyeball along with the superior eyelid. Now, if we take a look at the muscle under a microscope, then we will notice that it has the presence of the sarcomere in case of the skeletal muscle, and so the sarcomere forms the functional unit of the striated muscle fibers, that is in case of the cardiac as well as the skeletal muscle. So here we can take a look at the structure which is being formed by the sarcomere. So the sarcomere is present between the two Z discs which can be seen here, and along with this Z disc we have the presence of the actin molecule and the myosin molecule. And apart from it we have the presence of the actin, the myosin, and the titin. So these 3 myofilaments are responsible for the contraction and the relaxation. The 2 myosin head, myosin tail, and the actin filament are involved in the contraction, whereas the titin is involved in the relaxation of the muscle. Here you can take a look that the eye band which is being formed by only the actin molecule and the titin molecule, and it has absence of the myosin head and the myosin tail. And since the eye band has the absence of thick band, so if we expose the eye band to the light, then it would easily pass through it. But in case of the A band, which is formed by the actin filament, the myosin head, and the myosin tail, since it has the presence of the thick band, that is the myosin filament, So if we expose it to the light, then the light does not penetrate easily through it, and so it is considered as the dark region, whereas the eye band is considered as the light region. And apart from it, we have the presence of the edge zone, which is also known as the Hansen zone, and in between the Hansen zone lies the M line, which is the Mittelscheibe. So here you can take a look, we have the M line. Now we can note that in case of the contracted phase, that is in phase of the contraction of the muscle, the edge zone tends to narrow down, and in case of the relaxed phase, the edge zone widens. So it occurs because the myosin head binds to the actin filament, which is present over here, and it would pull the actin filament towards the edge zone, which would lead to the incoming of the actin filaments towards one another and the narrowing of the edge zone. So related to it, we have one clinical significance known as the rigor mortis. So the rigor mortis is the condition in which we have the stiffening of the muscle after death, since here the bond between the actin and the myosin filament is not broken down, and due to which it leads to the stiffening of the muscle, and the main reason for it is because of lack of ATP, since ATP molecule is responsible for the relaxation of the myosin head with the help of the ATP binding site present on the myosin head and the ATPase domain. If there is no presence of ATP, then it would lead to the condition of the rigor mortis. The next term which I want to mention here is about the DGC, that is the dystrophin glycoprotein complex. So the dystrophin glycoprotein complex is made out of the dystrophin protein, the dystroglycan, and the extracellular laminin, along with some other proteins, and these are found in the cardiac as well as skeletal muscle membrane, and are responsible for the signaling molecule and stabilization of the cytoskeleton membrane and the extracellular matrix. So regarding the dystrophin glycoprotein complex, we have an important point to discuss, that is regarding the dystrophin gene. So the dystrophin gene is the second largest gene present in our body, and the failure of the production of this gene, the dystrophin gene, leads to clinical conditions known as the Duchenne muscular dystrophy and the Becker's muscular dystrophy. So regarding it, we'll be discussing in the pathology section. Now moving forward, we have the titin. The titin molecule is present between the M band, or we can say the M line, and the Z band, and it has the function to bring back the muscle to the normal state, or we can say that it is involved in the relaxation of the muscle, and it also prevents the damage which could occur from the repetitive contraction in case of the muscles. Regarding the titin, we have the clinical significance, which is the familial dilated cardiomyopathy. So since the titin protein is encoded by the TTN gene, if the TTN gene fails to develop, then it would lead to the failure of development of the titin and would lead to the condition of the familial dilated cardiomyopathy, since the TTN gene is a common etiology of the familial dilated cardiomyopathy. Now the next point which I want to highlight here is the adaptation. Now you can understand the concept of adaptation by two types of people: the one which go to the gym and train their muscles extensively, and the other people are the paralyzed people. So in case of the paralysis, we have the loss of functioning of either complete body or the part of the body. So here, suppose if we have the paralysis in our left hand, then it would lead to the atrophy of the muscle, which would decrease the number of sarcomeres which are present, since the muscle is degrading, so the number of sarcomeres would decrease, and eventually due to the decrease in the sarcomere, it would lead to the decrease in the nuclei. And in case of the hypertrophy, we can take the example of the people who go to the gym. So the very easiest way to understand is that when you train your muscle extensively, the number of sarcomeres increase and leads to the hypertrophy, that is increase in size of muscle. So due to it, whenever we do extensive exercise over a long period of time, the number of sarcomeres tend to increase, and also because of another reason, that is due to the presence of the myosatellite cells. Now these myosatellite cells are similar to the osteoprogenitor cells, which were the stem cells in the bones. So these are the myosatellite cells. The myosatellite cells are located between the mature muscles and are responsible for increase in the number of cells. And lastly, in the skeletal muscle, we will be discussing the types of the muscle contraction. In the types of the muscle contraction, we have the isometric muscle contraction, the isotonic muscle contraction, and the exotonic muscle contraction. In case of the isometric contraction, the contraction occurs to generate power, but the length of the muscle neither increases nor decreases. So it could be understood that here I am making a vague diagram to make you understand that here the person is holding the dumbbell in his hand and is holding the position and is holding at this position, that is, we can say the 90 degree, and here if the person tries to contract the muscle more towards his body, then it would lead to the shortening of the muscle, whereas if he relaxes the muscle and moves the dumbbell away from his body, then it leads to the lengthening of the muscle. So this process is known as the eccentric isotonic contraction, where the length of the muscle is increasing but the power remains the same, and in case of the contraction we have the shortening of the muscle, so it is known as the concentric, that is, the muscle is being concentrated, isotonic contraction. And if it was the initial position, that is here, then which was somewhat like this, then it is known as the isometric contraction. And the last type of contraction which we have is the exotonic contraction. So suppose that we attach a muscle to a bar, so the weight would first of all pull the muscle downward and further it would come backwards up. So it is known as the exotonic contraction, that is the change in both power and the length of the muscles. Now moving towards the next type of muscle, that is the smooth muscle. The smooth muscles are these non-striated muscles which have central nucleus and are spindle shaped with the presence of the caveolae, and these are located in the walls of the hollow organs such as stomach, the uterus, and the bladder, and are also located in the respiratory, the urinary, and the reproductive region. These smooth muscles are involuntary in control, that is, they are under complete influence of the ANS, that is the autonomic nervous system, and they have mostly the function of constriction. So in case of the blood vessels we have the vasoconstriction, and in case of the GI tract we have it as the peristalsis. The other function apart from it is the production of the extracellular matrix. So these are responsible for the production of the extracellular matrix, and here we can take a look at its diagram. So here we have the smooth muscle which is spindle shaped and has the presence of the caveolae which are analogous to the T-tubules in case of the skeletal muscle. Centrally placed are the nucleus, and here we have the sarcoplasmic reticulum. So in case of the smooth muscles we don't have a defined sarcoplasmic reticulum, but still they are responsible for the storage of the calcium ions. Here we can take a look that there is no presence of sarcomere in case of the smooth muscle, but rather we have some irregular arrangements of the myofilaments and the intermediary filaments in case of the smooth muscles. So these myofilaments and the intermediary filaments are supported, or we can say these are scaffolded upon the adhesion plaques and the dense bodies. The adhesion plaques are present towards the sarcolemma or the plasma membrane, whereas the dense bodies are located within the cytoplasm. Adhesion plaques give off the myofilaments which are the actin as well as the myosin, whereas the dense bodies are connected to the intermediary filaments which are the desmin as well as the vimentin proteins. So these dense bodies are similar to the Z bands which occur in the skeletal muscles, and here we have the single unit and the multi-unit smooth muscle unit. In case of the single unit we have multiple cells which are contacted by the gap junctions, which can be seen in case of the peristalsis, which are present in the GI tract, and the multi-unit smooth muscles are the cell bundles which are made out of the individual cells but are not connected with the help of the gap junctions, but are rather separated by the basement membrane. And due to the presence of the gap junctions, the function of the single unit is that we have single action potential to initiate the reactions of multiple cells, whereas in case of the multi-unit we have single nerve ending which would stimulate each multi-unit smooth muscle. So we can say that the multi-unit smooth muscle are better since they are highly specific in terms of spreading the action potential. And so we have the next point that they contract individually, whereas in case of the single unit muscles they contract as a unit. So the single unit muscle fibers of smooth muscles can be found in the following places. These are the small blood vessels, the uterus, the GI tract and the bladder, whereas the multi-unit smooth muscle unit can be found in the large blood vessels such as the aorta and the femoral artery. So these are the two major arteries which are present in our body, and apart from it the multi-unit smooth muscles are present in the bronchial tubes, the arrector pili muscles and the vas deferens, which is included in the secondary reproductive part of the males. And lastly, in this video I'll be discussing about the cardiac muscles. So the cardiac muscle, as we discussed previously, is a type of striated muscle with the presence of the central nucleus and many mitochondria. Since cardiac muscles has the function to pump the blood throughout the body, so they require high amount of energy to perform such function, which is also supported with the help of the cardiac syncytium. So the cardiac syncytium is nothing but formation of the single muscle unit by multiple muscle cells. So in other words, we can say it as the multiple cardiac muscle cells combined to form the single syncytium. So due to it, the cardiac muscle cells are termed as the multinucleated, even though structurally they are mononucleated. And the function of the syncytium is to provide the rapid transmission of the electrical impulse along with the coordinated contraction between the muscles. Further, we have the three membranes covering the heart, which are the epicardium, the myocardium and the endocardium. All three are supplied by the coronary artery. And lastly, we have the stimulus, which is initiating the process of contraction and relaxation in case of the cardiac muscles. So these are the cardiac pacemaker cells such as the SA node and the AV node, and the autonomic nervous system, that is the sympathetic and the parasympathetic part of our nervous system. So thank you for watching the video. If you like the video, please like, share and subscribe. And if you are new here, do consider subscribing to our channel for further medical related content. And also follow us on Instagram @MediPlacebo.